Col Gray is a graphic designer, and there are a lot of great graphic designers, so what? Well, Col has done things differently. While everyone else builds their profile through local networking and competing with all the other bottom feeders, Col turned to YouTube and built a massive audience and an international client base. And in this week's show, he tells us how he did it and how you can too. Hi there and welcome back to Amplify, the Digital Marketing Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Bob Gentle, and every Monday I'm joined by amazing people who share what makes their business work. If you're new, then take a second right now to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. You can also grab some older ones when you're done with this one. Don't forget to join our Facebook community. Just visit amplifyme.fm/insiders and you'll be taken right there. So welcome along and let's meet Col. So this week I am delighted to welcome Col Gray to the podcast. Col Gray is honestly probably one of my heroes when it comes to YouTube, and also an amazing designer. And I'm really excited to finally get to spend some time with you. So Colin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Bob.
Oh, I accidentally called you Colin. Sorry.
You did, but that's
Col.
fine.
That'll be the last time you hear Colin. So, Col, why don't you start just by telling us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and the kind of work you do.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Col, which is short for Colin. I'm a graphic designer. I would probably say brand designer as well, brand strategist. I have a design agency called Pixels Inc., where I essentially specialize in logo design, but do things such as business cards, brochures, vehicle signage, all the things that basically visually represent your business or organization. I will take on board for you.
And unlike most of my podcast guests, you live only an hour or so away from me. And I'm usually kind of strict that I try not to make this podcast parochial in the normal sense. But for me, I think you're such a standout case study that I refer to when I'm working with clients all the time. You don't know any of this, but it's true. Because there are lots of graphic designers. There are many, many graphic designers. Any of us, anybody listening, could walk out and find 10 graphic designers within 10 minutes if they tried to. But knowing a little bit about your story and the way you've built your business, you've done some really unusual things that have worked really, really well. And that's what I'd really like to spend some time playing with. I think the thing you're best known for is YouTube. So rather than me ramble on, why don't you just start telling us a little bit about the YouTube story? Why?
Okay. Basically, around about 2014, 2015, I discovered this thing called content marketing through Chris Marr, who had the Content Marketing Academy. And I signed up to a masterclass with Chris, which was 6 months, learning about content marketing, inbound marketing. Because up to that point, I wasn't advertising, and I was doing some basic networking to try and get business. Most of my clients, I'd say 95% of my clients were in Dundee or the Dundee area, with a few maybe further afield up in your neck of the woods, Bob, in Aberdeen, and maybe one or two down in England. And that was my core audience. And like many graphic designers you've already mentioned, kind of to a penny. So I was in a big competitive market and needed to get work and wanted to kind of raise awareness. And I heard about this content marketing thing where I'm not a big salesy person. I find sales uncomfortable. I'm a designer. I'm not a salesman. And so this thing, content marketing, that was based on answering questions and being helpful and building trust and awareness through just being a helpful person, really aligned with my way of kind of wanting to attract clients and do business. And so the main thing, that we're kind of taught about content marketing was creating blog posts and writing blog posts on your website that answered the burning questions that people would have around, for me, around graphic design and branding. And I don't like writing. I find it difficult. I'm not a bad writer. People have said that they enjoyed the blogs that I'd written, but it wasn't a big thing for me. And there was two triggers that moved me into YouTube. The first trigger was I had a client come to me. Well, they weren't a client; they were a lead at that time, I suppose, and they wanted some help with some of their branding. And I'd asked them to send me a JPEG of their logo, which they said they would do, to give me a better idea of colors and things. And that logo never came through, and I never saw that client again. And about 4 or 5 weeks later, I bumped into them at a networking event, and they were actively avoiding me, and I was a bit concerned. I was like, oh, I've obviously done something wrong, or they found someone else, and they're a bit embarrassed to tell me. And I was fine with them finding someone else. That doesn't bother me. I don't expect to get every single job that comes my way. And so I went to speak to them, and it turns out that actually they just didn't understand what it was I'd asked for, and they were embarrassed to come back to me and say, actually, I don't know what a JPEG is. But because of the way I'd said it so nonchalantly, that it was sort of as if it was the most basic request in the world, they were embarrassed that they didn't know what it was. Now, a lot of people may be thinking, well, why didn't they just Google it? But she's not very tech aware. She, was very basic in her understanding of computers. And I was embarrassed myself because I thought I didn't want anyone to feel. She said she felt stupid, and that made me feel really bad. I didn't want anyone to feel stupid or dumb just because they didn't know something. We've all been there at pub quizzes where, a lot of people get the answer straight away, but just because you don't know something doesn't mean that you're stupid in a way. And so that struck a chord with me, and I was speaking to a few people about it, and a lot of my blog posts I'd kind of been talking about, what's a brand strategy and, what is a brand. And I realized my content was still high level for some people. Some people needed to come in at the ground floor, real basics. And so I thought, right, you know what I'm going to do? I don't want anyone to feel stupid. So I'm going to start creating content for business owners who want to have better communication with graphic designers. And that will do two things. That will mean that the customer or the client feels more confident when they're dealing with dialogue and some jargon and buzzwords, but it will also help every graphic designer to know that they're dealing with a business owner who has a basic understanding of design terminology. So this wasn't all aimed at me getting more work. I wanted to improve the reputation of the design world as well, in that we could be helpful. And it was Chris Marr again who kind of said, well, why don't you do this through video? And I was like, well, I don't like getting my photograph taken. I don't like hearing my voice played back to me. I felt I sounded like Rab C. Nesbitt, if anyone remembers Rab C. Nesbitt. I never knew that I sounded so Scottish. And he went, and I was like, why though? Why should I do? There's a lot of people out there, a lot of designers with YouTube channels. The last thing we need is more noise. And Chris said a great thing, and it always sticks with me whenever I'm going to write a piece of content. He's like, yeah, there probably are a lot of people out there who've talked about what a JPEG is, but only you will do it in your voice and deliver it in the way that you'll deliver it. And people are attracted to content that resonates with them, and the way it's written resonates with them, and the way that the content is delivered resonates with them. So why don't you just give it a go? And I thought, you know what? I need to push myself out of my comfort zone here in order to help others. This isn't all about me anymore. This is about helping others. And so I did that. I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, and I recorded my first video, and I'd say it was the scariest thing I've ever done, but really it was equal to publishing my first written blog post, because you're opening yourself up to criticism. And the difference between writing and a video is that people can see you. they can see you and they can hear your real voice, and it's absolutely terrifying to do that.
It absolutely is. I think one of the things that I mean, I'm very new in my YouTube career, but it was very similar with the podcast. But the video, it really does accentuate that experience of, well, we all compare ourselves to other people, and we never compare ourselves to people who are further behind or have more disadvantage. We only ever compare ourselves to the people who are much further ahead with much greater advantages.
I'd agree with that. It's that saying, never judge your beginning by someone else's middle.
Yes.
But we are very good at doing that.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that I find happens a lot, and particularly in the creative sector, is when designers and marketing people in general come out to start doing a little bit of marketing, they end up marketing to their competitors and their peers rather than their actual customers. And they wonder why their content doesn't hit the mark. And you discovered that very early on, that as you said, it's surprising how foundational content needs to be in order for you to really effectively communicate, and for the audience that you really want to connect with it. It surprised me a lot that we assume people know a lot more than they do. And there's also this anxiety that somebody else has said it, but your people want to hear it from you.
I think we've all been there in sort of conferences, events, networking, where you want to ask a question, but you feel it's too basic. Then someone else plucks the courage up to ask that question, and you can see the whole room breathe a sigh of relief because they all want to know the answer, but they felt it was too basic. Yeah. And that was valid, that feeling, and knowing that happens every day, because there's always new people coming along. There's always people being born, growing up, and not knowing the terminology. So as much as there are people who are always getting better and understanding, there will always be people who need the basics. And one thing that I will say quickly is that another lesson that I learned was that you should, if you want to get traction over time, create content that's always going to be searched for, evergreen content as it's known. You know, if you start creating content which is of the moment and is reactionary to things in the news and stuff, you may get a really quick hit and a quick, a large viewing at that time, but then it becomes dated and it doesn't really work. I've done a few topical pieces and they do get a bit of a boost, but then a month down the line, they're my least performing piece of content compared to content I created 3 years ago, which is a question that people are constantly looking for the answer to.
I think a lot of people, when they look at YouTube in particular, it appears to be so much work, and you have to, unless you're a psychopath, you're probably going to be feeling quite vulnerable. So the psychological barriers to entry are very high. And the perceived return, short-term return anyway, appears marginal. So I'm curious to hear from you. Obviously, you're 5 years into your YouTube journey now. What mini successes did you have right at the beginning? Were there any? What was your? Were there any early benefits?
I think one of the early benefits is what it taught me that I, as a designer, and I think many people in their careers, if you've been doing a certain thing for a while, if someone asks me to design something, there's a certain amount of muscle memory that I can just do the thing. Just do the thing. But when you have to start writing content to teach people, you have to do it in a methodical way that makes sense to someone who's never heard of this thing before. And so it actually made me analyze more what I do, and it gave me more confidence in my own abilities, because I was like, you know what, I know a lot of stuff, and I should be, and that then gave me a boost that I should be sharing more of the stuff that I know how to do. Some people worry that it's like, giving away magical secrets. And I did have some designers who questioned me when I, was kind of giving away how things were made and created and what the processes were. And it's like, well, if you give all that away, why don't they just do it themselves? I said, yeah, but it doesn't work like that. By opening up and showing people the processes, you're being, you're building trust because you're not hiding anything. It doesn't mean that they can go away and do it. It just means that what actually happened was they go, Col's showing us everything here. And I really need that service. And so I trust Col. I'm going to go ask him if he'll design this for me or help me with this project. And that was one of the biggest lessons, was that by being open and truthful and helpful, it was much more advantageous than hiding my pricing and not, being very cautious on how much advice to give on certain things in case they went away and went with another designer and stole my ideas. And I just found that video just helped me open up so much more, and the returns were hugely exponential compared to the old way of working.
Well, I'd like to come to that in a little while. I think, did you get any negative reaction?
Honestly, no. To be honest, nobody watches your first video. Nobody knows it's there. It's like we've got this thing about, I'm going to put this video up and the world is going to judge me. Nope. Maybe your mum and your partner, maybe one of your friends might watch it, and kind of, take the mickey out of you. But other than that, very few people will watch your first video. I think we all have a sense of, I don't mean this in a bad way, but we all have a sort of a sense of ego that we're going to put this video out and then everyone's going to watch it and we're going to look silly. Nobody's going to watch it. It takes a little bit of time. I mean, I'm sure you'll back me up on that, Bob. I mean, when you did your first video, I'm sure you didn't get thousands of views straight away.
Well, I had a fun experience because I was like super anxious about putting my first video on, because I was really, really anxious when I started the podcast journey. And if you go back and listen to episode 1, you'll hear that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's quite normal now. It's enjoyable. But the first YouTube video was that whole anxiety all over again. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm just going to put it on YouTube. I'll wait until a YouTube audience discovers it. I won't share it anywhere else. And then the next day, my wife said, are you going to share that video anywhere? Yeah, all right. Put it everywhere. And surprisingly little traffic, surprisingly little traction. I think I maybe, even now, that first video has got maybe under 100 views. And you had to work for them. So yeah, I think one of the things with YouTube that people don't realize is it's actually a safe space to play with video, which I didn't anticipate.
Yeah, it's a long game. So don't, be prepared for that. You have to invest the time, and time is a big thing for me. I don't have time for video, but all I would say is that, YouTube is the world's second largest search engine after Google, and many people treat YouTube as an entertainment platform, rather than a search platform. And I've uploaded videos to YouTube. The longer you're on YouTube, just to get a little bit technical, is you build more kind of equity with the algorithm of YouTube, and so you kind of build up over time. But I've produced videos, uploaded them to YouTube, and after 3 or 4 hours, they've appeared on page 1 of Google. Wow. And I've got videos up there, and that's not going to Google and doing a search, then having to click on the videos tab, which is next to the shopping tab. That's on page 1 of the main Google results. And the good thing with that as well is that if you have videos which are related to that topic, it will show those videos next to it as well. So for some search results, I've got 3 videos showing at the top of page 1 of Google. So don't discount YouTube as, something where you'll create videos that you put on your website. It's a search engine. answer the questions, and people will search for them and find them.
So, obviously, you're 5 years into YouTube now. I would be interested to hear from you, because obviously you speak about a YouTube channel as a long game. And the way I often describe it to clients is you can do ads, and that's really a short-term strategy. It's a good strategy. You start doing it today, it'll start working today. You stop doing it today, it'll stop working today. And then there's a medium-term strategy. So things like social media, micro-content, that social networking, that kind of thing. Is that you start doing it today, you might see a benefit in a few months, or you might get lucky today. Whereas with YouTube, and it's similar with podcasting, similar with blog, you start doing it today. Probably you'll be speaking into a vacuum for a long time.
Yeah.
But then one day something happens and it pays back like a high interest bank account. What was your experience of that?
I think the good thing about me for video was that I already knew, because video is part of content marketing, and Chris had always said, look, this is no quick fix. You're probably looking at like 18 months to 2 years before you start to see results. So you have to be prepared for the long game. And because of what you said there as well, is that, you could be speaking into a vacuum. Try to take that on as a positive, in that you have time to improve before, you start to get a lot of traction on your content. But one thing I would say as well is don't be tempted to remove old content unless it really is not relevant anymore. Because one of the things that I found actually was people actually liked to see the journey and the changes, and how you are on camera and how you present. It's like you said, Bob, you were really anxious with your first podcast, but now you enjoy it. I still get a little bit nervous before I hit record on the camera, but I can record and edit way quicker than I did for my first videos, which took me days to record and days to edit. Because I was much more of a perfectionist as well. I felt as a graphic designer, my videos had to be perfect. But now I'm just like, you know what? I'm a human being, and I want to be a human being and be approachable on camera. I don't mind if, like my first videos, I would cut out every single and err. Now, there were a lot of them, but I don't nowadays. I leave a lot of them in, because it's a natural rhythm of speaking. But I have got better actually just having silence, where I let my brain catch up, and that actually those pregnant pauses help, because people are waiting on the next thing coming in. I've had a lot of positive feedback that I speak not slowly, but I speak at a good pace. Whereas there are a lot of YouTubers, especially the American YouTubers, they speak very quickly, really quickly. A large part of my audience are not native English speakers, and so because I do speak more slowly, I think they find it easier to understand me. And I also make sure that the majority of my videos have captioning as well, not the automated captions, but they are hand done, so they're correct. With a Scottish accent, YouTube's auto caption feature has created some hilarious automated subtitles for my videos, and sometimes not in a good way. So I try to do that. So, and just because we all know that many people watch videos with the sound off, so captions should kind of be one of the key things that you include these days.
So how long into your YouTube journey were you before you started to see what we would when you started to notice that there were some odd things happening?
Okay, I suppose the first thing that we all get fixated with when you go onto YouTube is subscriber numbers. How many subs have I got today? How many subs have I got today?
I am super conscious of this. And anybody listening, you can hit pause right now and you can head over to my YouTube and subscribe. That's a good opportunity. I don't run any paid promotions on this podcast. This is your thank you. Head over to YouTube now, subscribe to my podcast channel, subscribe to Col, and then come back and you can hit play. Okay, Col, sorry to interrupt.
Thanks for subscribing. That's how everyone judges the success of their channel to begin with, is subscriber numbers. It took me 6 months to get to 100 subscribers. 6 months.
Wow.
I never thought I would get to 100. And when I did, I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. Then it took 6 months more to get to 1,000. So it was, the growth started to kind of really get going. Or was it 6 months? Or maybe it was a year. I think it was a year to get from 100 to 1,000. I have a chart actually, which somewhere
I've seen
that shows the growth. And then I got to 10,000. And you know what the funny thing is? It's never enough. It's always, there's always someone who has more subs than you, and you just constantly beat yourself up. And so you get to the point where you're like, okay, I've got to 10,000. The next big goal is obviously 100,000, where I get that nice silver play button from YouTube. But the best thing that you can do is actually forget the numbers and just focus on the content, because it's views that matter. It's views and how long someone watches, because you could have, I've got 21,500 subscribers as of the recording of this video, but only 500 of those subscribers regularly come back.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And just one other thing, because I'll get onto this. This is kind of the next big thing, is that in terms of businesses that do business with me because they found me on YouTube, very, very small percentage of them are subscribers to my channel. So subscribers, in a way, it's a good kind of social metric. If someone sees a channel with a lot of subscribers, they'll probably subscribe because they'll think, oh, this person's obviously got... But it doesn't actually mean a lot in terms of the real world use.
I think what's important to recognize is that it's people at the end of the day. And how many people need to love you for you to see success?
Yeah.
Actually, very few.
Yeah.
I mean, of those 21,000 subscribers, how many could you service?
Exactly. That's a Wembley Stadium. It's a Live Aid. How many of those would you want standing in a queue? You'd probably have a meltdown.
Yeah.
To do that. So yeah, you don't need everyone. For me, I suppose it's slightly different in that I started creating this basic design knowledge for business owners to help them have better communication with designers. But there are also a lot of people out there who are on their journey to becoming designers who are watching my content for that reason as well. So I have the majority, I would say pretty much all of my subscribers are people who are interested in design or are designers. The ones who aren't subscribing are the people who are coming to me for work, because those tend to be business owners who are looking for, they have a question, they have a business problem, and they've done a Google search, they may have done a YouTube search, and they've found my content, they've got the answer, they've maybe watched a few more videos, and then they've contacted me. They have no need really to subscribe to my channel. Designers, on the other hand, know that I'll be creating content over time, and they will always be learning because they want to be designers. They will subscribe. So just to reiterate, don't get too fixated on subscribers. What I would say as well, though, is, and don't be tempted, because there is the option to hide your subscriber count. That actually has a negative effect on your channel from a lot of people who've done studies. If you hide your subscriber number, people wonder why. Why are you hiding that? There's no shame in having 23 subscribers or 2 subscribers. Everybody started at 0. Just keep creating great content, useful content, and people will subscribe. And so to go back to your question, so the subscriber numbers were kind of the first signal that people were enjoying my content. But the biggest signal to me was the day that I received an email from someone in America saying, "Hey, I've been watching your videos. I love your content. I love how you work. I'm starting a new business. I would like you to design my logo. How can I pay you?" That was it. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, I usually have to create a proposal, chase up a little bit, maybe haggle on the price a little bit to try and get them to come through. And I spoke to Chris Marr and said, I've just had someone say, how can I pay you? I want to work with you. They had one question, and that question was, do I have to pay VAT? Which I didn't know the answer to because I'd never had a client outside of the UK. So I spoke to my accountant and they said, nope, if they are entirely based outside of the UK, then they don't have to pay the 20% VAT, which was a good thing. That saved them a little bit of money. And I'd said to Chris, I said, this is the easiest win I've ever had. And Chris went, you've been creating YouTube videos for 18 months. You've worked hard for 18 months to win this job. You've not got it for nothing. And it's easy to forget that.
I agree. I think one of the things that really stood out there was that when you start creating content, it's allowing you to build relationships at scale. And people want to do business with the people they know. Mm-hmm. And through reaching out through YouTube, the brain of the other person, as far as they're concerned, they know you. And I remember there are people, influencer type of people that you and I both follow. Everybody follows some of these people. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I started to meet them on a regular basis, it's a very strange experience.
Yeah.
Because I know them intimately. I know their children's names. I know what they do for fun. I know what books they're reading. They have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
And when that starts working in your favor, it's a magical thing.
It is. I've got I had someone send me an email. I hope they don't mind. They sent me an email looking for some advice, and I'd said, yeah, I'll happily help. Here's a link. You can book in a call with me. And they replied saying, thanks very much. I watch all your videos. This is going to be like meeting a celebrity. And I was like, what? And it feels really strange because, you're just you, Bob, and I'm just me. But to some people who, they're watching these videos and you've really helped them, then they have a close affinity to you, but you don't know who they are. It's kind of this almost a faceless audience. And I don't mean that in a dismissive way. I absolutely love every single person that watches one of my videos, subscribes to the channel, and more so the people that take the time to leave a comment. How many times have we all watched a YouTube video and then just moved on to the next without clicking like or leaving a comment? It only takes 5 seconds, but it takes effort. And so anyone that leaves a comment on my channel, I will make sure to thank them. And if it warrants a longer reply, if it's a question, then I will take the time and give them that question. But yeah, it's weird meeting people that you watch and listen to.
So something I'd like to look at now a little bit is, okay, your business 5 years ago and your business now. How would you contrast them?
I would say 5 years ago my business was local, and now my business is global.
And from a commercial perspective, do you see much of a difference? Not going into too much detail, but are you living the same life you lived then?
I'm doing more of the work I enjoy.
Right.
Which is a big thing. I was probably having to do, there were some months I was doing 100 jobs to make a livable wage. That would be like business cards and flyers where you don't really make much money, but they're quick turnaround. But at the same time, that's 100 different people I'm having to deal with on a monthly basis, emails back and forward, da, 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 da. Whereas now, I tend to work on one main project and then have smaller things kind of going on around it. So I can give much more focus to my client, which means I can give more focus to the project, which means a better result. So it still has its stresses. Everything does, but I'm in a totally different space to where I was.
I think the kind of work you described there is often it's transactional.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that used to bug me with that kind of work was, frankly, anybody could do it. And it sounds like you're now in a place where you're able to connect your value with the work that you're doing much more of the time.
I think so, yeah. I'm still working on that. I still suffer from imposter syndrome quite a bit, and this, just what we talked about there a little moment ago about people, like, someone said, oh, it's like meeting a celebrity, and it's like, oh no, I'm just Col, sitting in my office doing stuff. And so that actually can add to the anxiety a little bit, because you feel, oh, they're expecting this more of me than there is of me. But it just, the fact that I can now, that I'm now working with clients, I've got clients in Australia, America, South Africa, all over Europe. 5 years ago would have been unthinkable.
No, it certainly sounds like a very pleasant business to run. I know, working in a small local agency, it can feel like a hamster wheel sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you're off the hamster wheel, which is a big accomplishment in our space.
Yeah, I think I've still got one leg slightly on,
okay.
a little bit, but definitely making the transition. And hands down, YouTube has what's allowed me to do that.
Yeah. So I guess I'm curious to know, what would be the one piece of advice you would give to anybody who's thinking about breaking into YouTube the way that you did 5 years ago?
Don't worry about perfection. It can be a killer. I have to have the right camera. I've got to have the right lights. You've got everything you need. Your smartphone. Even if you have to use a lamp, but I would suggest you just daylight. Just learn about light. If there's one thing that people won't forgive, is bad audio. They'll forgive bad visuals, but audio is key. People just will not listen to bad audio, and you just have to do it. And as I know, there are people listening and they're going, I can't. It's too scary, and it is. It's scary. It is scary, but think about your closest competitor. If you're a business owner listening, or you were, think about them. Are they doing video? If they're not, you can get a really good head start on them. If they are, then you can't afford to be left behind. So there's you need to be involved in it. You do need to be involved in it. Just don't leave it too late.
I think one thing I would add to that is that one of the things that I've discovered through the podcast, or one of the advantages that I've found through the podcast rather, and video is really only amplifying that, is that before content marketing, all you've got left to compete with is your website, your search ranking, and your ability to hustle and close a deal.
Yeah.
As soon as you start investing in this content marketing, personal branding, you start to separate yourself from your local competition in some significant ways. And also you start to insert yourself into a national and international market in a way that you just don't expect.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's been an additional benefit, is I no longer think in competition in the same way.
Yeah, it definitely, you'll be surprised. I'm amazed at the opportunities that I'm sitting here being interviewed by yourself, Bob. Again, something I would never thought of 5 years ago. I've spoken on stages at conferences, would never have happened without YouTube and doing video. I've been asked to do voiceovers. I've got a call tomorrow where someone in Germany wants to speak to me about helping them with some video stuff. I get asked to do reviews of products, and it's just it's opened more doors than I had envisaged. And if anything, we all need to be opening more doors to give ourselves more opportunities, because otherwise it's it's competitive out there, and we need to give ourselves all the chances that we can, and sometimes that just means stepping right out of your comfort zone to do that.
And that's where everything worth having is.
Yeah.
Colin, we should probably Colin, I'm so sorry. Col, we should probably draw things to a close. I have a signature question I try and remember to ask everybody. And that is, what's one thing you do now that you wish had started 5 years ago?
That would definitely be, I wished I'd started to collate an email list when I started my YouTube channel, but I should have been doing it for years, because it's really the one thing that we control. And I wish that I'd had that list, and at the end of every video I would say, hey, please remember to subscribe to my channel, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to my email list, where you will get great brand and design advice free every month. But I only started doing that, I started my email list maybe about 10 months ago, and I've only just started asking at the end of my videos to get people to subscribe.
I've heard that so many times. People with huge audiences forget the importance of email.
It's crazy.
Like I said, it's the only way you can control a relationship online, other than chatbots. But then Facebook are going to change the rules. And so how can people get on your mailing list then?
Very easily. If you head over to rockyourbrand.co.uk, you can sign up there. As I say, it's once a month. There's no hard sell. It's just I give things like book recommendations on brand and branding. Last month's edition was, funnily enough, about video and how to, how you can kind of utilize video for your brand to help it make more of a success. But have productivity tips, all sorts of things on there. So why not sign up and join a few hundred other people who are getting that information to their inboxes.
Col Gray from Pixels Inc., you have been a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for your time. You're super generous with all the tips
it's a pleasure.
Around YouTube.
It was a pleasure, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you. Like they always say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is right now. And if you think it's too late for YouTube, then think again. You don't need a massive audience to see success. Just a handful of the right people can do it. Before I go, just a quick reminder to subscribe, and again, if you haven't, join our Facebook group. You can find a link in the show notes at amplifyme.fm/insiders. I'd love to connect with you on social media, and you'll find me wherever you hang out. Just search at Bob Gentle, and if you do, message me, let me know so I can follow you back. And more than ever, I would appreciate your subscription on YouTube more than you can appreciate. YouTube is early days for me. I'm enjoying it. It's a bit of a challenge, but every subscriber counts. And if you enjoy this podcast, you'll almost certainly enjoy the YouTube content as well. If you have enjoyed the show, then as always, I would love for you to review it on iTunes. It means a lot to me, and it's the best way to help me reach more subscribers. My name's Bob Gentle. Thanks again to Col for giving us his time this week, and to you for listening, and see you next week.